101, the forced speech, the persuasive speech. Recently, my grandfather passed away. When this happened, my father was very upset. It devastated him. But he took solace in the fact that my grandfather wasn't suffering anymore. I was also happy about this, but I started to wonder why he had to suffer at all in the first place. This is a situation that many families have to deal with. Is it right to let a loved one suffer even if there's no chance of recovery? I don't think so. Dictionary.com says that euthanasia is the act of putting to death painlessly or allowing to die. And I've done a lot of research on the euthanasia laws in the United States. Currently, it's illegal everywhere in the United States except for Oregon, Washington, and Montana. But I think that with a proper system in place to help regulate euthanasia, it would be beneficial to make it legal throughout the country. And it could easily be assimilated into our modern world. But before we start thinking about making changes, we should see why changes need to be made. Medicine has come a long way in the short time that humans have been on Earth. But we can't compete or even hope to keep up with nature. Thus, there are thousands of diseases that still have no cures. And some of these diseases are manageable, like asthma and diabetes, and they're rarely fatal. But others are more severe, like Huntington's or ALS. There are thousands of Americans living, if you can call it that, with illnesses that greatly suffer or impact their quality of life or cause them pain on a daily basis. If they have a right to live the way they want, they should also have a right to die the way they want. I think it's unethical to let our loved ones suffer that way. Pancreatic cancer is a good example of this. A 2007 New York Times article stated that pancreatic cancer is one of the deadliest and most painful types of cancer, with 95% of patients dying within the first 5 years of being diagnosed. It is the number 4 leading cancer killer. The reason it's so hard to treat is because the symptoms don't appear until the cancer has progressed to a higher level, because it's so hard to detect. And Mayo Clinic says that sometimes in real severe cases, the pain can get so unbearable that a doctor will suggest injecting alcohol into the nerves so that it won't send pain messages to the brain anymore. If you have to go to that length to stop pain, why would you even let someone start with it? I think that it would be better to let them choose a more painless way to go. ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease, is a disease that doesn't necessarily cause pain, but it severely cripples the quality of life of the person who has it. It weakens the muscles to the point that you can't even move them, but only the muscles that control voluntary movement. So you can stay alive, you'll still be able to breathe, and you'll be conscious, but you won't be able to move. You'll lose the ability to eat, speak, walk, or move at all. So your brain will stay conscious, but you'll literally be trapped inside your body. There are ways to slow down the paralysis, but it's not reversible, and it will eventually lead to death. I don't think that's any way to live, and most people would want the chance to end it on their own terms and give their family members and loved ones a proper goodbye. And with the plan that I have in mind, they would be able to get that chance. Now, like I said, currently euthanasia is legal in all but 3 states, but abortion is legal everywhere in the United States. That means that a woman has the right to rob a child of a life full of happiness and chances, but a person who is terminally ill with no chance of recovery and who is suffering daily does not have the right to end their own life. I think that euthanasia should be legal, but that there should be proper guidelines put in to control it. I think that first, the patient should be diagnosed with a terminally ill cancer or disease, or one that is going to cripple their quality of life very severely. They first must be informed of all the options of management, treatment, and then chances of survival. So they have to get all the information on their disease first. After that, they have to wait at least 3 weeks to make the decision about whether to be euthanized or not. This time will give them a chance to really think about the decision they're about to make. They'll have time to talk to family members, do research, and even grieve, because that's a big part of it. The important thing is that they do not rush into the decision. They need to be given a good amount of time to clear their head and think logically. After that 3-week period, they must give a written and verbal consent. There can be no euthanasia without consent, because that's just killing someone. It's not helping anyone at all. After they give the written and verbal consent, they have to wait another 2 weeks before they can actually become euthanized. That time is just another time to think about it. It gives them more time to think. Maybe they don't want to go through with it. Maybe they want to change their mind. And it also gives them a chance to say their final goodbyes if they do decide to go through with it. After that 2-week period, they must give another written and verbal consent. But any time after that 2-week period, they can be euthanized as long as they go into the doctor. Euthanasia should be thought of as a last resort, but if the patient doesn't want to go through treatment, they have the right to bypass that. But I think with this system, we could really end needless suffering. And a lot of people think that euthanasia wouldn't work in the United States, and it just wouldn't work at all. But Oregon shows us that it most certainly can work. Today's world is a world of progress, and America is usually at the forefront of that progress. But when it comes to euthanasia, we are seriously lacking. Like I said before, there are only 3 states that legalize it, and Oregon was the first. According to lawlibrary.com, in 1994, Oregon proposed the Death with Dignity law. And with that, patients could choose to be euthanized if they met certain criteria, which are similar to the ones that I proposed. They had a few different ones, but for the most part, they were the same. However, the National Right to Life Committee, which was supported by the Roman Catholic Church, got an injunction against the law, so it did not go into effect until 1997. On March 26, 1998, a woman in her mid-80s that had been struggling with breast cancer for 20 years became the first to publicly use the law. She was given less than 2 months to live by her doctor and had started to have trouble breathing. She was given a prescription medicine, and after taking them, she went into a deep sleep about 5 minutes after taking them. And then 25 minutes after that, she passed away peacefully and without pain. Imagine how much suffering she would have had to go through without that option. It would have been totally unnecessary. Many people who are against the euthanasia choice thought that there would be a lot of rush once Oregon passed the law and that everyone would be willing to get euthanized and not deal with their diseases. But that was not the case at all. Of the 23 patients who chose to be euthanized in 1998, 15 of them went through with it, 6 died of their diseases, and 2 of them remained alive at the end of the year. Only 129 people have decided to go through euthanasia from 1998 to 2002 in Oregon. So this is showing you that not everyone's going to go for it. There are some people out there with an extreme will to live and who will fight through anything to stay alive. And I think that's great. I applaud those people and I respect their decisions. But for some people, the pain and restrictions on their lives is going to get too much for them, and they should be able to end it on their own terms. It's all about the choice, about having the choice to do what you want to do. Some people also think that it's going to put doctors in a difficult position, because some doctors might not want to euthanize their patients. Sometimes it might go against everything that a doctor stands for. But there are simple ways to get around that. If your doctor doesn't want to euthanize you, go find a doctor who will, because that won't put any strain on that doctor, but there are plenty of other doctors who will gladly do it to end your suffering. I also think euthanasia would help families deal with the whole dying process. Right now, when people die, it usually comes as a great shock, and even if you know it's coming because someone's been ill, you're still not ready for it when the day comes. With euthanasia, families would be able to get prepared. There'd be a set date or something like that, and you'd be able to say your proper goodbyes, and it wouldn't be such a surprise to everyone. It would also bring families together. When my grandfather died, he died in El Salvador, and so my dad wasn't there for him when he passed. But I know for a fact that my dad definitely would have wanted to be there. If my grandfather had been able to have been euthanized, and if he would have opted for that, I know my dad would have flown down there right away and been at his side at his time of need. Right now, I'm going to show you a clip of a man who is about to go euthanasia in Switzerland, and he's talking to his wife and thanking her for the support that she's given him.